Bring your all power to stop me now. The line that dropped like a hammer in the hallowed halls of justice is now echoing far beyond Washington, when Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas made the stunning and rare decision to suspend Rep. Crockett for her outburst against attorney John Sauer, who had taken a controversial stand supporting Justice Elena Kagan's nuanced position. It wasn't just a punishment, it was a warning shot. The origin of this confrontation lay in the Judiciary Committee's latest series of hearings aimed at reviewing the legal foundations of citizenship rights, with increasing pressures from various states pushing for narrower definitions of citizenship. The hearing was expected to be intense, but nobody could have predicted just how emotionally charged it would become. John Sauer, whose legal history includes challenging pandemic mandates and supporting state authority over federal immigration policy, came into the hearing not merely as a legal analyst but as a torchbearer for the conservative reinterpretation of constitutional protections. Sauer strategically aligned his argument with a misrepresented version of Justice Elena Kagan's writings, twisting her support of constitutional birthright guarantees into a foundation for more stringent interpretations. This was a calculated move, one that attempted to weaponize liberal judicial reasoning against itself. It was this maneuvering that lit a fuse within Crockett, who had already expressed concern over the manipulation of legal texts to fuel discriminatory policy. As Sauer delved deeper into his legal gymnastics, asserting that Kagan's previous statements on the 14th Amendment could be interpreted as limiting rather than affirming broad citizenship rights, Crockett's expression changed. She leaned in, eyes locked on Sauer, no longer just another participant in a legislative routine. The room felt it too. She interrupted, not with a casual interjection, but with purpose. Her voice, deliberate and steady, sliced through Sauer's monologue. You dare twist the words of a justice to fit an agenda that hurts the most vulnerable among us. She began. You don't get to invoke Elena Kagan and simultaneously dismantle everything she stands for. Sauer tried to push through, offering a legalistic rebuttal, but Crockett wasn't done. She spoke of immigrant families, of the American promise, of the weaponization of law as a political tool. If you can look at the face of a child born on this soil and say they're not American, then it's not the law you're defending, it's your own prejudice. The moment shifted from debate to confrontation. Crockett's passion poured through each syllable. Her voice grew firmer, her delivery sharper. You are not the gatekeeper of patriotism. You are not the voice of law and order. You are a mouthpiece for fear disguised as legal authority. Sauer, visibly rattled, attempted to regain the floor. He accused Crockett of misrepresenting his position and claimed that she was engaging in ad hominem attacks. But Crockett stood up, figuratively and literally. She pointed at the legal text Sauer had cited and accused him of cherry-picking quotations to support a narrative that had nothing to do with justice. You want to make this about constitutional fidelity? Then let's talk about the full text, the intent, the lived reality of the people these laws are supposed to protect, she said. You want to talk about the law while ignoring the humanity behind it. The chamber was stunned. Even the most seasoned lawmakers were caught off guard by the intensity. Clarence Thomas, who was present in an oversight role due to the sensitive judicial issues being discussed, intervened. In an almost surreal moment, Thomas invoked the rarely used power to suspend a member from further participation in that day's session, citing violations of decorum and respect for witness testimony. The room erupted into whispers and gasps. Never before had a sitting member been suspended so abruptly, and certainly not for challenging the rhetoric of a legal witness in a passionate, albeit pointed, manner. The tension thickened, but Crockett did not back down. Her eyes met Thomas's, not with defiance, but with clarity. If truth is a violation of decorum, she said, then maybe your definition of order was never built for justice. The audience, composed of lawmakers, aides, legal experts, and journalists, was frozen in disbelief. Crockett gathered her notes and began to exit, but before she did, she turned back one last time toward Sauer, who now sat silent, his previous confidence eroded by the weight of Crockett's words. Then came the line that would ignite social media, newsrooms, and political talk shows across America. Her voice cut through the silence like a clarion call. Bring your all power to stop me now. It wasn't a threat, it was a statement of resilience, a declaration that no institutional mechanism, no suspension, no legal posturing could silence her or what she stood for. Sauer, known for his courtroom poise and intellectual sharpness, looked stunned. His eyes blinked rapidly. He shifted in his chair. The cool, calculated legal scholar who had entered the room was now visibly shaken. A congressional staffer sitting behind him whispered something, but Sauer didn't seem to hear it. His breathing was uneven, whether out of embarrassment, realization, or sheer emotional overwhelm. The moment hit him hard. Crockett's final words didn't just challenge his argument, they challenged his entire worldview, his method of advocacy, his selective engagement with justice. The clip of the exchange went viral within minutes. On Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, and cable news, the footage spread with lightning speed. Hashtags like #BringYourAllPower, #Crockett vs Sauer, and #SuspendedForTruth began trending. Millions praised Crockett for her courage, her eloquence, and her refusal to be cowed by institutional mechanisms. Others criticized the suspension, calling it a thinly veiled act of racial and political retribution. Legal scholars debated Thomas's intervention, some defending the necessity of maintaining decorum, others pointing to the double standards historically applied to black women in positions of authority. Meanwhile, Crockett herself remained unfazed. She released a short statement hours later, reiterating her support for constitutional protections, defending her right to speak truth to power, and declaring that her suspension would not silence her fight. As the fallout grew, it became clear that this wasn't just a one-day controversy. It had become a national conversation about race, law, decorum, power, and the limitations of the current political system. Commentators pointed out the irony of Thomas, a justice who had himself been embroiled in ethical questions and controversies, issuing a suspension over a verbal challenge to legal manipulation. Others questioned why passionate defense of justice was penalized while systematic attacks on immigrant rights were treated as standard policy debate. In the days that followed, protests erupted in support of Crockett. At universities, civic centers, and even outside the Capitol, signs bore her words, "Bring your all power to stop me now." Artists turned the quote into murals. Activists wore it on t-shirts. The line had struck a nerve. It had become more than a defense against John Sauer's argument. It had become a mantra for resistance, for unfiltered truth in the face of polished hypocrisy. Behind the scenes, political allies rallied to support Crockett. Several members of Congress issued public statements backing her. Legal professionals denounced Sauer's tactics and questioned the fairness of Thomas's intervention. Even some conservatives expressed discomfort with the optics of a black congresswoman being silenced for passionately defending immigrant rights and judicial integrity. Crockett's courage had exposed a fault line in American democracy, or the gap between rules meant to maintain order and the moral imperative to speak truth, even when it disrupts that order. Meanwhile, John Sauer remained mostly silent. He declined interviews. His legal team issued a brief statement insisting that he respected differing opinions but stood by his interpretations. Yet, the image of him in that hearing, eyes wide, breathing heavy, shaken to his core, was the one that stuck. It was not the image of a man defeated by argument, but of someone who had finally been made to confront the emotional weight of the ideas he had treated as abstractions. The legal theories he so confidently wielded had been dragged into the light and made human, and that confrontation had changed the game. The suspension eventually expired, and Crockett returned to her duties undeterred. If anything, her influence had grown. She became a symbol of fearless political voice, someone unafraid to call out not just opposition, but the very systems and procedures that protect injustice under the guise of neutrality. Her message was clear: laws are not sacred unless they protect the people they claim to serve, and no amount of institutional force could suppress that truth forever. The drama that unfolded was not just about one sentence or one suspension. It was about what that sentence represented. It was about the power of language to expose hypocrisy, the courage to speak against manipulation, and the resolve to stand firm even when punished for it. "Bring your all power to stop me now" wasn't just a defiant declaration to John Sauer or Clarence Thomas. It was a message to every institution, every gatekeeper, and every voice that seeks to twist justice into something small, exclusionary, and fragile. In that moment, Crockett reminded America that truth isn't always polite, and sometimes, power must be met not with silence, but with fire. If this video moved you, informed you, or made you think differently, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with others. We'll keep bringing you the stories that others won't. Bold, honest, and unfiltered.